Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Irish Breakdown Podcast, which is now partnered with our new friends over at FanDuel Sportsbook, part of the Believe Network. Happy Monday, everybody. And I know that some of you guys were expecting a little bit of RTCF today. Do not worry. Brian and Sean will be back tomorrow to talk some recruiting, some teams, some college football topics, especially now that it's right in the middle of fall camp. They got a lot of good stuff to cover.
Oh,
But
yeah.
today, Brian wanted to throw a little bit of an audible, and him and I were talking about the Feldman's Freak List that came out this morning, and it sparked a really good conversation, which pretty much halfway through the conversation, Brian was like, yo, why don't we just do this live?
Yeah.
Let's talk about this stuff on air.
And Trevor's relaying my words in a far more calm manner in which they were actually spoken. He's trying to be nice and protect the boss, but believe me, there was a lot more intensity behind the nice conversation. And Brian mentioned, why don't we just do the show? I said, you know what? Forget that. We're going to talk about this in the show today. So I called Sean, make sure he was good to switch the show to tomorrow. He was good about it. Then he called me. He's like, what's got you so fired up today? So then we spent the next half an hour going off about it. But yeah, it's gonna be a fun show today. Very fun show today.
Yeah, it sure is. And it just sparked a debate about, not between Brian or I, but really the ongoing debate between Notre Dame and how they're viewed. And one thing that I want to make sure of is at the top, as a program, Notre Dame is respected. They made a run last year, but it's how they did it. It's the makeup of their roster, not so much how Notre Dame, the university, is viewed in the eyes of the media. A lot of it is how the team is put together. It's the athletes that are on this program, or that are within this program, that make up this team. And so we're going to dive into what some of, what some of the stigmas are saying about this team, and what some, major talking heads have talked about with this Notre Dame program. So we're going to cover a lot of different stuff today, man. I'm ready.
It's really what it boils down to, Trev, and it's really a bunch of things we're going to discuss that point to one reality that I see, and that is that while Notre Dame is still getting some respect, I'm not going to sit here and act like they're getting hated on. I don't think they're getting hated on. I don't think this is hate. There's always certain particular analysts who don't like Notre Dame, but I don't think the majority people of real analysts and journalists and such hate Notre Dame. I think it's just you're missing it, and that's why in the title we talked about are they being overlooked? Are they being underrated? And there's a lot of different things we're going to point to. And it's not just, Feldman only has 2 guys on the freaks list, and it's the lowest a Notre Dame player has been ranked. The highest ranked Notre Dame player has been ranked since at least 2018. I can't find his 20. He's been doing it for like 20 years. I can't find 17 and before. But I was able to go back to 2018 since he joined the Athletic. And the lowest that a Notre Dame player had been ranked prior to this was Cam Hart at 38 in 2022. They've had 3 different guys ranked in the top 10. Riley Mills was in the top 10 in 23. Kyle Hamilton was as high as 3rd, and then he was also top 10 a second year. You had Julian Aguara was in the top 10 in 2019. In a lot of years, actually, Trev, the second-ranked guy was higher than the highest ranked Notre Dame guy. And then you've got the fact that they had only 2 guys this year and last year. From 23 to 20, from 23 to 20, they've had at least 3 guys every year. So the 2 most talented teams I've seen since 2015 have the fewest number of freaks on it. And so but it's not just that. It's that combined with a lot of these other things that all come together to say, this team still isn't getting, in my opinion, the respect they deserve for last season. And I could counter with, and someone could certainly reasonably counter with, well, they got to prove it more than one season. And I think that's a very fair take out without context. And so, for example, the coaches poll came out today, and they have Ohio State ranked ahead of Notre Dame and Georgia ranked ahead of Notre Dame. Now, I could make the case for you, and Trevor, you did make this case. We did a preseason top 25, that Notre Dame on paper should be considered a better team than both Georgia and Ohio State on paper. Notre Dame didn't lose as much as Ohio State, all these different factors. But the reason I won't argue with you, and I won't make that case, or at least I won't make it in a way where I'm going to be dogmatic, like it's embarrassing that they have Georgia and Ohio State ahead, is because those 2 teams have proven it. That's 3 of your last 4 national champions right there. But then when I look at it and I see that every year in every major ranking I've seen that I can remember, maybe there's one outlier, of the 4 semifinal teams. So you can say, oh, they're number 5, Brian. Like, that's pretty good. Yeah, it is pretty good. But they're the 4th of the 4 semifinal teams from last year. And every ranking there that I've seen that I can remember, they're 4th of the 4 playoff teams. Okay, yeah, you got to prove more than Ohio State, and you've got to prove more than Georgia. Even though you beat Georgia once, that doesn't mean, we've said this, that just because you beat Georgia once, it just meant you were better than them last year. It doesn't mean your program is better than them yet. You still have more to prove there. Same with Ohio State. You're not a better program than Ohio State. They've beat you literally the last 3 years. But what about Penn State? What have they done to earn that benefit of the doubt? What about Texas? What have they done to earn that benefit of the doubt? What has LSU done under Brian Kelly to go from unranked to number 9 in the preseason rankings? Like, all these things, I'm seeing all these teams get the benefit of the doubt, and then not Notre Dame to be so. And then we're going to go through several different factors, and it just points all to the same thing, that this is still a team that in a lot of ways is being overlooked and underrated. And even some people that then give Notre Dame some praise, it's almost like an offhanded praise, and we'll talk about that as well, Trev. But it started off with the freaks list. This is what kind of got me, because I'm just like, look, man, there's definitely going to be multiple guys on there. I mean, you had Malachi Fields and Will Pauling were both in the freaks list last year. I get why Will Pauling isn't in there now, because he was injured in the spring, and he takes a lot of that off of the spring. Okay, fine. Jeremiah Love's not in there because he wasn't full go in the spring. His numbers won't reflect. But my whole thing is, he was injured. He's one of the best athletes in college football. That's why he gets a mention from another guy as evidence of he's even higher on the EA Sports speed ranking, even higher than Jeremiah Love. Should kind of tell you something. Go ask them what last year's numbers were. Go look at the GPS numbers on his 98-yard touchdown run, or his 80-yard touchdown run, or one of his 70-yard touchdown runs, or one of his 60-yard touchdown runs. You could get last year's numbers. All right, cool. It's all about this year. Fine. Leonard Moore can't find his way on there. He's a 6'2+ cornerback that probably runs in the 4.3s, has had almost a 23-mile-an-hour GPS last year when he was chasing down Quinshon Judkins, and he can't find his way in there. Malachi Fields isn't in there. None of the linebackers in there. Notre Dame has arguably the best running back room, secondary, and linebacker room in college football. Not one of those players is on there. You had a D end and a tight end. And then he mentions Anthony Knapp and the Eli Rare, or in the Bryce Young. It's like half the Bryce Young write-up was about Anthony Knapp. And some of the numbers he used to back up Anthony Knapp were better than numbers of linemen that were in his top 101. And it's like you have more Alabama linemen in your freaks list, offensive linemen, than you have the entire Notre Dame team. You have more Iowa players on your freaks list than the entire Notre Dame team. And then you kind of look at it and you're just like, okay, now I'm just at the point now where now it just seems like you're missing something. I mean, I guess we could say that maybe it's Notre Dame not giving enough data. Who knows? I mean, that's the only other thing I can think of. But it's now 2 years in a row that you've basically looked at this Notre Dame roster and didn't feel the need to have Jeremiah Love on there last year. And look, if you don't want to have Jeremiah Love on there, I'm pretty sure Jadarian Price is going to, check in on some freaks list numbers. I know that Kedron Young is going to check in on some freaks list numbers. And as we see from that list, this isn't all starters or star players. There's a guy in there that I think had like 200-something rushing yards last year that I saw in there. You're going to have Nicholas Singleton at number 19, which I don't have a problem with. But Jeremiah Love is nowhere to be found. It's just one of those things, Trevor, it's just like in by itself, it didn't really bother me. But as you know, this has been building with me for the last month. It just keeps building and building and building. I'm like a volcano ready to erupt. And today I erupted a little bit because it's just at the point now where it's like this is now starting to piss me off a little bit.
Oh, it's the icing on the cake for sure. The biggest takeaway that I had is you take off Malachi Fields on that list. If you want to make an argument about Jeremiah Love, you and I were talking about it before the show. It's like, all right, he was injured to end the year and whatever other excuse that you want to make besides popping in the film and watching him hurdle linebackers
because
and safeties
it's based
standing
off
upright.
Numbers,
sure.
Testing numbers. Sure.
So if you want to go with that route, fine. Malachi Fields was on there last year, ranked number 66. Transfers to Notre Dame is now nowhere on the list. That's what got me fired up about this, because it feeds into the stigma of, well, Notre Dame doesn't have athletes. Notre Dame doesn't have the athletic power to compete with the Georgias and the Penn States and the Ohio States and the Alabamas and the Clemsons. It is what it is. But that right there, that one move of somebody who that you considered a freak, 6'4", 225, runs a this 40 and close grip benches 315. He did all that at Virginia. He's still doing all that at Notre Dame. But now that he's in South Bend, he's now no longer a freak because of why? What's the justification behind that? Outside of the stigma that, well, athletic kids actually don't really go to Notre Dame like that. So it's going to feed into something I'm going to talk about later about our guy.
He wasn't at Notre Dame in the spring, so we don't have numbers. You can get summer numbers, and you can go back and look at his GPS numbers from last year, and you can still use the Virginia numbers. There's no reason you can't do that. Exactly right, Trev.
Blows my mind. And to Brian's point, this wasn't the only thing. This was the icing on the cake. This was the, whatever you want to call it, the straw that broke the camel's back. Regardless, it fired us up pretty well. And it's just one of those that Jeremiah Love not being on there, ridiculous, but there's some sort of argument you can make. Will Pauling was hurt. He was 75% in the spring, yada, yada, yada. But there's only two guys on there. And then half of Bryce Young's team, you and I were talking about this earlier today. Half of Bryce Young's article piece in there is about Anthony Knapp. And it literally said, Anthony Knapp, who has a strong case to make this list, and then lists off all of his measurables and how strong he is, then just doesn't put him on the list.
I mean, his bench number for a true sophomore was nuts. It was like over 25. It was over 400 pounds. Let me actually find that breakdown. But he said that he had Anthony Knapp benched 425 pounds and vertical jumped 30 inches. And I'm like, okay, then put him on the list. Seriously, like, put him on the list. It was really, really frustrating to read through this, because, as I said, you could make a case for a couple others, but you can't tell me that none of those other no receiver that comes back, no running back that wasn't hurt, no DB is gonna be on that list. Come on, man.
No, Leonard Moore also was pretty crazy.
Yeah, or Christian Gray. I mean, because again, this isn't 101 best players; it's freak athletes, and we know that those guys are going to test well. So yeah, it's like you got Jade Knott on the list, and his max velocity was 21.6 miles per hour. With all due respect, it's like I can promise you that Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price both had numbers faster than that last year. I promise you that. So yeah, it was frustrating, but like it's a lot of things, Trev, and it's like last week Heather Dinich has that article that she's writing, and it's Heather didn't put the list together. She's just using that list to frame her article. It's fine. She's got Notre Dame 9th on there, talking about what the committee may like, what they might not like, whatever. But the fact that they're 9th on that list, the SP Plus from Bill Connolly, they're 9th best odds behind Miami. Behind Miami. Like in what universe can you look at that Miami team the last decade and you look at the Miami team that they got coming back and sit there and tell me that any reasonable ranking is going to tell me that team has a better chance of winning a national championship than Notre Dame? You can't tell me that. You can't tell me that. It's just really frustrating to see that, because I mean, yeah, what do they have, like 2% odds to win the championship? Yeah. The ESPN analytics has Notre Dame with a less than 50% chance to make the playoffs and a 2.7% chance to win the national championship.
Yep. I mean, it falls in line with other things out there. I mean, again, partners of FanDuel.
Penn State's at 7, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Bama's at 10.8. Like, Georgia's at 17.9 and Texas is at 24.1. Texas has never made it past the semifinals of the four or more playoff team, and yet they have got better odds than the runners up from last year. Don't tell me it's because of all the players Notre Dame lost, because Texas lost a lot more from their roster than Notre Dame lost. So yeah, it's just this constant delusion. And my favorite one, Trev, is I'll let you share this, but it's almost as if like the people that give Notre Dame love, they're giving Notre Dame love because they like Marcus Freeman, not because they recognize that Notre Dame has a roster that can match these teams.
Well, this is the most frustrating thing about it, is in a vacuum, Notre Dame is starting to get some national recognition for the run that they went on last year. But this is what really starts to frustrate me, because I've seen people say it on the message boards. I see people say it on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. I see people doing it in the chat right now. It's going to take a national championship to change the narrative. Here's the thing. I don't know where
that's the point. But that's the point of why we're pissed, because it's not true for Texas. It's not true for Penn State. It's not true for Oregon.
Agreed.
What have those teams done that they don't need to win a championship, but Notre Dame has?
And I'm not even to the point where I'm convinced that a national championship is going to change it, because you have talking heads like Paul Feinbaum. And there was a segment on ESPN where they were talking about, college teams' chances to make the playoffs. And it started out strong. And this is a guy who historically has not been a big fan of Notre Dame. Earlier in the 24
season, he is a Notre
season,
Dame hater.
Yeah.
I will say that. I will say that. I think the Georgia game last year kind of changed him a little bit. To a degree.
It changed his view of Marcus Freeman. They asked him, why are you confident Notre Dame is going to make the playoffs? He said, quote, Marcus Freeman has done more with less talent than anyone in the country, anyone else in college football. Even though this team has serious question marks, he will find a way to mold them and push through. Right. So to the point where...
What serious question marks do they have, Trevor?
Who's going to start at quarterback?
Yeah, which highly ranked recruit is going to start at quarterback? If we were talking about Georgia and being in the same situation as Notre Dame, he would not be saying that. He would not be saying that.
Mm-hmm. Which is to the point where, like, I can appreciate the optimism around a national championship is going to change it. But as of right now, how things stand today, if Notre Dame wins a national championship, look what Marcus Freeman was able to get out of this team with just not as good athletes as Ohio State.
They didn't even have to play the best SEC team in the playoff. They didn't even this team got upset. If they would have had to play this team, Ohio State, or this SEC team, they wouldn't have won it. That type of situation. It's that nonsense. But like in his praise of Marcus Freeman, he backhanded the Notre Dame roster. It's exactly what he did. He does more with less. Are you kidding me? Like it's an absolute joke. It's an absolute joke. And then I got to listen to how great Brian Kelly is and how LSU's going to make this jump this year with a coach who's done less with more. I mean, this goes back a long time. They did this crap with Brian Kelly, and it drove me nuts back then as well. They'd be like, well, this Notre Dame team doesn't have elite talent, but man, Brian Kelly's done a great job coaching his team, because that's what Brian Kelly used to tell people. And it absolutely drove me nuts, Trevor, to kind of hear this year after year after year. And it was all driven by the coach who basically did all the crying about how they can't get top players, and people still believe it. People still believe that stuff. And it's infuriating, because Notre Dame doesn't have a problem at all, Trevor, in bringing in top talent. And he even kind of hinted about it in his article. I think he said something about the 24 class or something like that. And, it just, Knapp, another member of the Irish's already strong 2024 recruiting class. Well, where are some of the players from that 2024 recruiting class? Kingston, Leonard Moore, like, really? Strong. They all played huge roles in last year's team. They're great athletes. Then how come we're not gonna? Then how come we're not gonna put more of those guys in your top 101? Like, it just.
Let me ask you this: what do you think will actually be the turning point? Because I think a lot of it is not looking at them as elite athletes across the country, but they're elite athletes for Notre Dame. That's a stigma that I've seen from talking heads, from opposing fan bases, from all this stuff. So What do you think, in your opinion, Brian, could potentially change that? Oh, okay, Notre Dame doesn't just have good athletes for Notre Dame. A lot of other teams across college football would be lucky to have Leonard Moore, Jeremiah Love, Bryce Young, guys like that.
I do think a national championship will matter to a degree. I do. I'm not someone. There will be some people that will sit there and say, "Oh, well, they didn't get Georgia," and whoever was considered the best team in the regular season gets upset in round 2, so they didn't have to play that. There'll be some of that, but I think with the people that have a desire to be honest and objective, then I think it's going to come down to just putting out more in the NFL draft and getting higher ranked recruits. Like I think if Joey O'Brien or Kari Adams has the same kind of freshman season that Leonard Moore had, they will get more of that recognition that next year from a freaks list. And I shouldn't say Leonard Moore's not a great example, because outside of Feldman's list, Leonard Moore actually is getting a lot of love and a lot of respect for how good he is. But let's say like an Adon Schuler. Joey O'Brien comes in, doesn't play as a freshman, then as a redshirt freshman becomes a starter, a very key starter on a team that plays for a championship. I promise you he's going to get more love that next year than Adon Schuler's got. Like, I have been told by multiple sources that Adon Schuler was offered something big from Georgia to transfer there. I know that they offered him something in high school to try to flip him late, and he's stuck to Notre Dame and hasn't been interested in leaving. Georgia thinks Adon Schuler's an elite player. They thought that even before he had that monster game against them last year. But you look over here, and all of a sudden he's not getting the love nationally. Coaches see it, and that's why, and somebody in the chat, I think it was Andrew Rhodes in the chat, made a comment like, football people have a very different opinion from journalists. I listen to David Pollack talk about Notre Dame, and it's a very different conversation than whoever his sidekick is, who's I think is more of a journalist. That guy's opinion. He's like, they have the occasional Joe Walton, Quentin Nelson, but don't have consistently dominant offensive lines. What? Like, did you just start paying attention to Notre Dame 5 minutes ago? Like, what are you talking about? Like, the 2015 offensive line in Notre Dame had 3 top 10 NFL draft picks on that line. On that line. One of the best guards to ever play in the NFL just retired this offseason, played at Notre Dame under Brian Kelly, Zach Martin. So, I think I saw Brett McMurphy came out with his trash preseason rankings. He posted his AP ranking and had Notre Dame, I think, 7th on his preseason ranking. There's a lot of journalists that have this kind of nonsense and not as many actual real football people. And that's the thing that I have noticed about these rankings is that right there. You've got McMurphy had Georgia 1 in his preseason ranking, Georgia number 1, Penn State 2, Texas 3, Clemson 4, Bama 5, Ohio State 6, Notre Dame 7. Notre Dame was closer to Miami than they were to Texas, Penn State, or Georgia. Michigan 11. If Notre Dame got the kind of benefit of the doubt that Michigan's getting, they'd be number 1. Well, Michigan won the title 2 years ago. Like, almost like one person on that entire program had anything to do with the title they had 2 years ago. That's Sharon Moore, who was the O-line coach and an OC on that team. The entire coaching staff's been changed over. Most of the roster's been changed over. And so it's it's just kind of, man. You got the SP Plus with Notre Dame 9th. You've got Pro Football Focus with their simulation machine that has Notre Dame having lower title odds than Duke, Washington, SMU, Miami. It's like, that's absurd. Josh Pate comes out. He says his model says that they're going to be 9. The best most likely scenario is 9-3. Now, in defense of Josh, he said, I don't agree with that. I think they're going to be better than that. But I didn't even feel like his disagreement was like, I'd have been like, it's time to get a new model. When your model spits out stuff that bad, consistently that bad, then it's time to, maybe we need to look at what we're putting into the model. Same thing with a lot of these other things. When your prediction machine tells you that Duke has better odds to win a title than Notre Dame, it's time to change your formula that leads to your simulations. So it's just all this stuff, Trevor, just keeps getting more annoying, more and more annoying. And even like the watch list, Georgia has 4 defensive players in their preseason watch list, including a safety who didn't even start for them last year. That's why I say a lot of this has to do with recruiting rankings. KJ Bolden, who was very good as a freshman last year. Don't get me wrong. This isn't even a problem having KJ on the preseason. I think it was the Nagurski Award watch list. I have no problem with KJ being on there. But you watch those 2 teams play and you felt Georgia had twice as many impact players as Notre Dame has. I'm with all due respect, I watched their star safety get hurdled by Riley Leonard while I watched Notre Dame's number 2 safety come in and knock the ball out of a Georgia running back's arms for a huge turnover. Like, I watched those 2 teams play. Notre Dame was the team with better safeties in that game. Both of them in that game. When Notre Dame safeties needed to make a big play, including their number 3 safety, who broke up a pass on 4th and 5, their All-American high draft pick safety gets hurdled by Riley Leonard on a huge 3rd and 6. But I'm supposed to believe that their number 3 safety last year deserves to be on the Nagurski Award watch list, but Notre Dame's starting safety last year, who was very good as a redshirt freshman, doesn't belong on it. That's the whole point I keep talking about. It's, what a wizard Al Golden was. Well, yeah, he was a heck of a coach, but he wasn't out there coaching bums. He was coaching really good players. Every All-American I ever coached was a really good player who I was able to do my part in my job, frankly, to get the most out of them. Harry Hiestand didn't turn 3-star stiffs who couldn't bend into first-round draft picks. He took really talented players, molded them, and got the most out of them. So this notion that Notre Dame still lacks talent, and it's just what a genius Mike Denbrock is, what a wizard Al Golden was, what a great coach Marcus Freeman is, all true things. All true things. But it's all, they praise them because, like, man, they got that team to the title game. When you lose your starting left tackle, your starting center, your starting Viper, your backup Viper, your preseason All-American cornerback, when you lose one of your better D tackles in game 5, you lose your All-American in the first-round playoff game, your other All-Americans banged up all year. I know I'm missing some people from the injured list, Trevor. You lose all those guys and you still go to the title game? Maybe, just maybe, you might want to think, hey, Marcus Freeman's a great coach. Mike Denbrock's a great coach. Al Gold's a great coach. All true things. They got some dudes. They've got some dudes. If you didn't watch that Georgia game and be like, that team can run, then you weren't looking for that. You were just looking, you had your preconceived ideas, and you're just going to give the lazy, well, they didn't have their starting quarterback. They didn't have their starting quarterback in the second half against Texas either. And they were able to not only win the game, but that wasn't Gunnar Stockton holding on to a lead, Trev. They were losing that game when Gunnar Stockton got inserted to the game and came back and won. I watched Georgia beat that team with their backup quarterback, but we're going to dismiss Notre Dame because they beat Georgia with their backup quarterback by 13, by the way. And I'm supposed to believe that there's no bias in there, that you're not dismissing this Notre Dame team? Like, no, man. It's frustrating. And especially it matters in this day and age, in the NIL era, because if Notre Dame players aren't getting their due recognition nationally, then that's going to impact their ability to maximize NIL deals. Now, Jeremiah Love's getting his, but there's some guys at Notre Dame that aren't getting their due respect, in my opinion, because of things like this. And that's why I'm pissed, to be flat out honest with you. I'm not even like annoyed by it. I'm just downright pissed because it's thing after thing after thing after thing after thing. Oh, they got a first-year quarterback. All right, cool. We've seen first-year quarterbacks be pretty flipping good. Yeah, but those guys are really, really good players. Yeah, so's CJ Carr. So is Kenny Minchie. It's frustrating. It's frustrating to see that. And to see it over and over and over and over again from the national media. And even some in the Notre Dame media, to be frank, with some of the things people are telling me that's out there. And it's it's very frustrating.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm just honestly downright pissed off today.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's the lazy analysis. That's what gets me. Is the inconsistent lazy analysis of Notre Dame compared to how they analyze other programs that are on these lists. And like some of the stuff I don't even consider clickbait. They're just lists that come out. Like, it's not like the title of the article is, Notre Dame players doesn't have as many players on Feldman's freak list than
Notre Dame
Alabama's offensive
continues
line.
to be disrespected on the Bruce Feldman's freak list. That's clickbait.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's 100% clickbait. It's the zero rationale, and it's difficult for things like a betting service. I don't need rationale coming out about them, but it's some of the other defense that you hear where people will use things like betting lines and like what the spread is, what your odds to win a national title are. I mean, you go and you look at what Oregon's odds are in FanDuel. Oregon has better odds to win a national championship this year than Notre Dame, and Oregon has never won a national title. Not in my lifetime, not since I've been born, not since 2000, ever.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason this year, they have better odds than Notre Dame to win. Notre Dame
fifth with Alabama and Clemson. And Notre Dame is closer to LSU behind them than they are to Oregon, Clemson, or Alabama ahead of them.
Mm-hmm.
They're not even close to where Penn State and Georgia are. Not even close. Notre Dame's at plus 1,500 on the FanDuel championship odds. Penn State's at 750. Georgia's at 650. I'm fine with Georgia. Who's number one? Texas at 550. Based on what? Based on what? They battled back in the fourth quarter of both of their semifinal losses the last 2 years, only to still lose. Is that their claim to fame? I just watched Notre Dame beat the team that beat them twice last year. Like Notre Dame and Texas both lost to the same team last year, or both played two playoff teams last year. They both played Ohio State. They both played Georgia. Texas went 0-2 in those games. Notre Dame went 0-3 in those games. Notre Dame went 1-1. Notre Dame beat the team that beat Texas twice last year. Rematches are hard. Not for Georgia. They beat Texas twice, including coming from behind with their backup quarterback. And that team is just, they're going to win it. Yeah, the coach who's got 2 10-plus win seasons in his entire 10-plus year career of being a head coach is a no-brainer to win it. What's Dan Lanning proven that Marcus Freeman hasn't? Why does Oregon get that benefit of the doubt? Notre Dame doesn't. That's the frustrating thing. And some of these questions, guys, are rhetorical questions. I know why Texas is getting the hype. That's the whole point. It's because of who their head coach is and the assumptions people make about him, which he hasn't earned, and the name on the jersey of their new quarterback. I understand all that. But we're trying to give you a real analysis and point to how does that roster speak to that? Because if Arch Manning was as good as people say he is, and I think Arch is really good. You're telling me he couldn't have beat out Quinn Ewers last year?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
watched them need overtime to beat Arizona State.
Mm-hmm. It's just it's asking the logical questions on the opposite side. To Brian's point, I understand why Texas is ranked ahead. I understand why Oregon is ranked ahead because Dan Lanning is also a popular new young coach, and they have all these exciting athletes, and they went 13-0 last year. I understand that. I'm somebody that evaluates the team going into this season, not just the program. Because if you're going to evaluate the program in its entirety and what the program means to college football, then Alabama needs to be 1, and Clemson needs to be 2, and then Georgia needs to be 3, and then Ohio State needs to be 4, and then that's just, you have to evaluate also what the team is this year. And for the people, Texas has to be ahead of Notre Dame because of Steve Sarkisian. Okay, what has Steve Sarkisian done?
Mm-hmm.
At Texas, we beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa 2 years ago. That's great. And then what?
Right. Notre Dame beat Georgia in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm. I just don't. I don't understand what some of the reasoning is. It's the inconsistent reasoning applied to, for Ohio State. I'll use that team as an example. Fresh off of a national championship. Yes, they lost a lot and 8 starters on defense and both of their coordinators and their starting quarterback and both of their 1,000-yard rushers and both of their offensive tackles. But I mean, Jeremiah Smith and Caleb Downs are the best players in college football. They'll be fine. Well, hey, like Oregon lost their top 2 pass catchers and their starting quarterback with a lot of experience, and also but they have like Dan Lanning, so they'll be okay. Notre Dame's going to struggle because they don't have Riley Leonard, Xavier Watts. It's like, well, why not list what they have coming back?
Right. I know they have Jeremiah Love and Leonard Moore, but they've got this new quarterback.
Yep.
Well, so does Ohio State. But I'm good with Ohio State getting that benefit of the doubt. They should. I've got them preseason number 1. But why does Oregon get that benefit of the doubt? Why does Brian Kelly and LSU get that benefit of the doubt? Why does the worst of it all is Texas and Penn State? Those are the 2 worst that bother me. Because like you watch those teams play, yeah, well, Penn State blew a lead. No, Notre Dame played like booty in the first half, spotted Penn State 10 points, and then dominated them for the final 32 minutes of the game. Outscored them 27 to 14 in the last 32 minutes of that game. So, like, where's James Franklin, a guy who Brian Kelly looks at his record against top 10 teams and laughs at him? Like, that's how bad his record against top teams is. Yet he gets that benefit of the doubt, and Marcus Freeman doesn't. I could pretty sure I just watched Marcus Freeman and Notre Dame outcoach James Franklin last year. Maybe I missed that, Trev. Maybe I was dreaming that. Nope, I wasn't dreaming it because I've watched the highlights of it 57 times since the season was over with. It really ticks me off, dude. It really does.
It just bothers me, the glass half full mentality they look at with other programs and the glass half empty that they look at with Notre Dame.
And it is a difference. You can say, well, they're like that with, no, they're not. It's very unique to Notre Dame. And the examples I literally just pointed to is Penn State is the blatant obvious example. Like I actually somewhat understand the hype about Texas. I mean, this is a team that we've always viewed as underachieving. A lot of this is about perception. The perception has been they've always had talent. They just haven't had a good coach to get the most out of that talent. Now they've got a good coach. Oh, okay, I agree with that. But shouldn't he have to prove that a little bit? Well, he's been to the semifinals last 4 years. Okay. I can actually talk my way into understanding Texas. And my beef isn't even necessarily with where Texas is ranked and viewed. It's the absolute hypocrisy for which they get pumped up and Notre Dame gets kind of brought down. The one that really bothers me, however, is the Penn State hype. Every year, Penn State gets overranked, and I, for the life of me, can't understand why. They have no significant wins to speak of in the last 10 years. You'd have one. You'd have to go back to 2016 when they beat Ohio State. They beat Michigan a couple times, but you look at whenever they beat Michigan, it's always when Michigan's in a down year. They beat Michigan one year when Michigan was I forget which year, but they were 8-5 that year. But the year Penn State, the only year that James Franklin won a Big Ten title, 2016, they lost by 35 to Michigan. Beat Ohio State that year. Great. Lost to USC in the Rose Bowl. Why does he get the benefit of the doubt? I just watched Marcus Freeman outcoach him. So explain to me why he gets the benefit of the doubt. Well, they got a really talented team coming back. Well, why aren't you applying the same standard to them that you apply to Notre Dame in that they lost the best tight end in college football, the best DN in college football, 2 top 15 NFL draft picks? Why aren't you applying the same standard to them that you're applying to Notre Dame, who lost their 3rd-round draft pick at safety and their 6th-round draft pick at quarterback? Well, they're just going to reload. Okay, why is it Notre Dame? Why? That's my problem. Yeah. Penn State, where they are, plus 750 odds on FanDuel. Notre Dame at plus 1,500? Really? Yeah, it's annoying. It's very annoying. And by the way, I wanted to point this out. Yeah. You're going to love this, Trev.
Oh boy.
So I'm also frustrated with LSU. Well, LSU won a title in 2019. Not with this coach.
Or anybody on this roster.
Exactly. Or coaching staff. Like literally there's not a person associated with this program right now that was there. In Brian Kelly's first 7 years at Notre Dame, he had 2 seasons of over 10 or more wins. 2. In his last, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. In his last 5 years, they won 10 or more games every year. So turned the program around. I should just point out that in those 5 years, Brian Kelly went 12-10 against teams that were ranked in the top 25 at the time they played. His record against teams, when you look at who was ranked after the season, is sub 500. In 3 years at Notre Dame, 3 years, Marcus Freeman has gone 14-5 in games between ranked opponents. 14-5. If you take out the 3 playoff games from last year, he's 11-5 in 3 years. 12 wins in 5 years for Brian Kelly. 11 wins. Let's just go postseason because Brian Kelly never beat a ranked team in the postseason. Brian Kelly goes 12 wins in 5 years. Marcus Freeman has 10 wins in 3 years in the postseason because I'll take out the South Carolina game as well. But yet that coach who went 10-3 2 years ago with one of the best offenses in college football history, Heisman Trophy winner, 2 first-round NFL draft picks, went 9-4 last season. That guy, because of some transfer receivers who never produced the way that Notre Dame's 2 transfers have produced, including one guy who tore up LSU 2 years ago in a bowl game, they're getting the benefit of the doubt, but Notre Dame doesn't. Like, you see my frustration?
Oh, yeah.
It's because of the perception. Well, Brian Kelly always did more with less. Now he's got more because he's at LSU. I'll be willing to bet you that there's a lot of coaches in college football. The majority of coaches in college football, if you gave them one day to study Notre Dame's roster and one day to study LSU's roster, I'd be willing to bet you a month's salary that the vast majority of coaches would say, I'll take Notre Dame's roster over LSU's roster. But that's not the impression. The impression is, oh, no. LSU's got the better roster. No, they don't. No, they don't. But the assumption in the media is that they do. And that's where I get kind of sick of this. And it's like to the point where I just want to be like, I'm not going to talk about it. I'm just going to let it go. Like, no, screw it. It's my show. I can talk about what I want to talk about. And I'm sick of this crap. And somebody needs to push back on it. Somebody needs to call these people out for their utter nonsense. If your formula tells you that Miami has a better shot to win a title than Notre Dame does, adjust your formula. I do it all the time. I look back at my recruiting rankings and say, we all have misses in recruiting. But what you got to look for is, are there specific positions or specific types of players that I miss at a higher rate than others? And so, for an example, for me is I notice that I tend to miss more on big receivers because the way that I rank and the way that I would grade, I would give big receivers a benefit of the doubt that they could overcome things because of their lack of size, because of their size, excuse me. So I had Micah Jones ranked higher than I would now because I saw his film. I'm like, yeah, he's not a burner, but man, I love the ball skills. I love the size. I like this. And then I didn't put enough into other things that were there, but because I have a bias towards big receivers, I then would miss. So then I had to adjust my grading system to react to that because my gut, which is where my grading system came from, was causing me to miss. And it wasn't just Notre Dame receivers that I was missing on. I was missing on big receivers going to other places. Like going back to even 08, the 08 class, I missed on Dan Buckner, who went to Texas. I love Dan Buckner. And he was an okay player, but I missed on him. So you have to adjust your formula. You have to adjust your rankings to make sure that you are looking at where you're making a greater amount of mistakes than normal and adjust accordingly. And so I did. Now my bias, I had to think about my bias. You study your numbers, and when you have a SP plus, which remember after the 2019 season, the final, and I think he went back and changed it, but I remember reading it after the title game and I almost lost my mind. But at LSU behind Ohio State and Clemson after the championship game had been played. And you're just like, okay, when stuff like this keeps happening, it's time to change your formula. And when your formula tells you that Miami has a better chance to beat Notre Dame or better chance to win the title than Notre Dame, then your formula's wrong. They could beat Notre Dame and still not have a better shot to win the title than Notre Dame. Well, they're in a conference. Yeah, which makes it harder for them, in my opinion. Because they then have to not only play Notre Dame out of conference and in a conference, but then they got to play in a conference title game. That's one more game they have to play. It's one more opportunity to get beat. If they play in the conference title game and lose, they now have to play 17 games to win a championship. That actually makes it harder. Where there's a world in which Notre Dame only has to play 15 games to win a title. So even if they lose, if Notre Dame loses to Miami, runs the table, there's still a chance that they could be a top 4 seed, depending on how the rest of the season goes. So you just look at it and it's I'm just tired of, you know what? Like, I bite my tongue a lot more than you all realize, and I'm kind of getting tired of it because it does me no good to bite my tongue. So you know what? Forget it. I'm going to speak my mind. And when I get pissed about stuff like this, I'm just going to talk about it because it keeps happening. It keeps happening. It's not just the Feldman's freaks list. If it was just the Feldman's freak list, I could actually kind of understand it. Like, well, you know, Jeremiah was hurt and he didn't test, and Pauling was hurt, he didn't test. Malachi wasn't anywhere to be tested because he was still at UVA in that limbo. That's fine. I mean, okay, I don't agree with it, but, you know, I get it. But it's when this comes after this, after Feinbaum's comments, after, you know, the SP Plus rankings, after PFF's championship odds, after this, like PFF has Notre Dame's offense and defense ranked in the top 10, both in the top 10. Yet their simulator gives Notre Dame like 19th best odds to win a title. Again, when your formula is that bad that it tells you Duke, SMU, Washington, and Iowa, among other teams, all have a better chance to win a title than Notre Dame, it's time to fix your simulator because it's broken. It's wrong. Fix it.
Yeah, you got outlets like Lindy Sports ranking 2 Notre Dame wide receivers in their top, whatever it was, 15 or 18
top
receivers
20.
in college football.
Yeah.
But then their receiving unit isn't in the top 10 receiving units in the country. So there's just no continuity between it. That's also a very frustrating aspect to this conversation. There's no continuity. There's no sort of consistency with how Notre Dame is being evaluated. It's got the best running back in the country, the best O-line in the country. Like, they have a really proven defense. Mike Denbrock's going into year 2, but Duke has better odds to win the national championship than Notre Dame. I just wanted to make it make sense. That's my whole gripe.
Yep. And yes, Salty, I do draw a salary. I pay myself the same amount every month. So, but yeah, Trev, it's frustrating. We had a couple super chats. We're going to keep talking about this couple super chats. I want to get to Tom Connor with super chat. Hey, guys, IB made my 1,200-mile road trip a lot easier. Thanks, guys. Yeah, Tom emailed us. He had a very long road trip, and he listened to a bunch of our shows to pass the time. I appreciate that very, very much. And then Patrick Gaselli, love you guys. Thank you for everything. Thank you, man. I appreciate both of you guys very, very much. So, you know, Trev, we're going to talk about Pitt here in a little bit, but I just this team better be as good as I think they're going to be. And I've been getting a lot of comments lately, like, you seem to be more excited about this team. And I'm like, yeah, there's a reason, because I have actually seen this team perform. I saw them in the spring. I've seen the first couple of practices. I've seen a lot of football over the day. I was telling somebody the other day, I was like, look, dude, I know what talent looks like. Right? I mean, I played against Plexico Burris. I told you my first high school pass, the first pass I threw in high school was picked off by Dre Bly. You know, like, I've covered Notre Dame for over a decade. I've been to these games. I've seen Trevor Lawrence up close. I've seen Andrew Luck up close. Right? I mean, I've seen these big-time receivers. I've been to all these All-American games. I know what talent looks like. And when I watch this team play, and I'm like, dude, like this team is way more talented than people give it credit for. It was always more talented than people gave it credit for. But they allowed themselves to be just completely convinced by Brian Kelly that Notre Dame lacked talent. And it disgusts me. I mean, I've pointed this again. You go back to the 2011 season and look, like 2 future Hall of Famers in the NFL, in my opinion, were on that team. And Zach Martin and Harrison Smith. And they weren't freshmen. They were veterans. Zach was a junior. Harrison was a 5th-year senior. That team also had Michael Floyd, Manti Te'o, Tyler Eifert, Chris Watt, Theo Riddick, Sear Wood, Jonas Gray, TJ Jones. It had Trevor Robinson. It had Aaron Lynch, Stephon Tuitt, Capron Lewis Moore, Lewis Nix, Robert Blanton, Matthias Farley, who didn't even start on that team. It had Gary Gray, who they completely ruined. That team, I think Jamor Slaughter, Zeke Mata. I think I went and counted. I think it was like either 19 or 21 NFL players were all guys who played in the NFL were on that team. And I don't mean on that team in like they were freshmen that didn't play. I mean guys that played on that team. 19 or I think it was either 19 or 21. And that team went 8-5. 8-5. But yet the college football world was convinced that Notre Dame lacked talent. It's not a coincidence that the minute you get a coach who says, nah, we're not making excuses, all of a sudden Notre Dame quickly ascends to a higher level and is more poised to stay there. Now, he does have to prove it now. Like you've talked about, Trev, let's see those back-to-back successful seasons, majorly successful seasons, and to a degree, that is absolutely factual. But to see this, man, oh my goodness. It's like,
but that's why history can't play too big of a factor when I evaluate things. People can do it differently, but that's why the 2 things can be true. Notre Dame has to prove that they can follow up a successful season with another successful season. But I'm not going to let what they did in 2013 and 2016 affect how Notre Dame, how I believe that they're going to do in 2025.
right.
There's things that this team has to show me. But I think they have the tools in place to now do it. More specifically, the coaching staff. By the way, final tally on the 2011 roster, 24 NFL players.
That played that year. Not were on the roster, but played that year. That were like guys that were in the rotation. It's crazy. Oh, because another one I forgot. Braxton Cave is another one that I forgot about.
Wild.
But that team was an 8-5 football team. Come on, man.
It blows my mind that the talking heads around the LSU program talk about how now Brian Kelly can do more with more, not at Notre Dame where he was doing more with less. But yet the results haven't shown themselves, but that stigma is still there at the start of every year. I don't understand that. Like just the constant waiting of, but now this is the year. Well, Notre Dame had that year and they're still not getting that level of respect. I think that's what's confusing to me. I just wish I could sit down and talk with people. It's like, okay, like what is your actual rationale? And don't throw out some stuff about they're not in a conference. I don't care about that. Don't throw out like what about this team, the personnel and the coaches makes you not think that it has top 5 talent in the country. I wish I could get that rationale. Truly.
I just don't know how you can look like, is it literally just experience a quarterback? Like, I mean, that is the only thing I could think of. Like,
but even then, like that, it would just still be centric to Notre Dame.
Right.
Like, are we really putting that much weight into Julian Sain's 14 garbage time throws? Kenny Minchie at least rushed for a touchdown last year.
He's also thrown 3 passes in his career. It's not like Kenny's never played in a game. Like CJ, you could at least always never thrown a pass in a game. Like, well, neither did Jameis Winston before the year he won the Heisman. Neither did Michael Vick the year before he led Virginia Tech to the title game. I mean, we could do this all day. Neither did Trevor Lawrence before he stepped in as a true freshman that year and led them to a title.
Neither did Everett Golson.
There you go. It's another one. Yeah, we've seen this Notre Dame team do that. We saw Deshaun Kaiser do that. We've seen Mike Denbrock do this. You know, it's like this isn't even a situation where it's like I need somebody to do something they've never done before. I just need coaches to do kind of what they have already done at other places. I mean, Desmond Ridder, as goes from steps in 2018 at Cincinnati, takes over for a team that went 4-8 the year before. Desmond Ridder, in year one under Mike Denbrock, they go 4-8 that year. Offense scores 20.9 points per game. Desmond Ridder takes a red shirt, doesn't play a snap in 2017, doesn't throw a pass in 2017. Comes in the next year as a redshirt freshman, completes over 60% of his passes, over 2,400 yards, 20 touchdowns, 5 picks, and also rushes for 572 yards, 5 touchdowns, and Cincinnati goes 11-2. And I can promise you C.J. Carr is way further ahead as a player than where Desmond Ridder was as a redshirt freshman. And I would definitely argue that he has a significantly greater supporting cast. And that's where the whole thing about the quarterback shouldn't matter as much to people. You don't need C.J. Carr to carry the team this season, or Kenny Minchey if Kenny wins the job. I mean, I've said before I think C.J. is going to win it, but I don't think it's a done deal. I've pushed back on people that say it's a done deal. This isn't an anointing for, so he's got to win the job. But whoever wins the job, to me, is a very talented player that doesn't have to carry this team. Because that quarterback will be throwing to 3 players that have been on Feldman's freak list the last 2 years. And one of them is not named Jeremiah Love. Because you had Fields and Paulding on it last year, Raridan on it this year. And another guy, like I think it was David Pollock was talking about, but he talked about how he was talking about Notre Dame's receivers have to be better in the regular season, which is a very fair and accurate point. I completely agree with it. And he talked about, like, can Jaden Greathouse do all year? He's like, Jaden Greathouse was a dude in the last 2 games, but can they do it all year? And I thought that's why I say the football people tend to give better arguments about Notre Dame's strengths and weaknesses than other people do. I said this to you the only guy that was hyping up Notre Dame's secondary last year outside of Notre Dame people was Greg McElroy. When you listen to David Pollock talk, you're like, dude, what he's saying isn't matched by what the journalists are saying about Notre Dame. Because those guys know football. That doesn't mean you have to agree with every take that they have, but they know football. They can look at a guy like Leonard Moore, look at Drake Bowen, look at Jaden Osbury, look at Jalen Sneed, look at Kingston and say, that's a different type of athlete than Notre Dame's had at that position for most of the time in the last 15, 20 years. They've had the Owusus, the Jalen Smiths, and all that. But, like, even back then, some of their big-time athletes got overlooked. You and I talking on the phone earlier. It's like, I remember when Drew Tranquill blew up the combine. Just 4.5, great testing numbers, and everybody's shocked. And I'm like, why are you shocked? Did you not watch him play the last 2 years? Like, I had people argue me, Tavon Coney's a better athlete than Drew Tranquill. You're out of your mind. You're out of your mind. But there's this perception about Notre Dame players that just people don't realize, like, wow, I didn't realize Notre Dame's receivers had that kind of speed. Did you not watch them play? Because I did, and I don't know why you're surprised by that. And it's frustrating. But, like, you could say, hey, look, it's fair. Jaden Greathouse has got to do this and this. But, hey, he did prove it in the Orange Bowl in the championship game. Did ball out in those games. You give him Malachi Fields, Will Paulding, Eli Raridan, Jeremiah Love, Jadarian Price. I mean, the offensive line that non-Notre Dame analysts are viewing as arguably the best in the country. So, like, what's Adam's last name? I want to make sure I pronounce this correct. I think it's Creniti. Adam, I think I'm saying your name correctly. But Adam goes, here's a comment Adam had. Let me find it here. He goes, just curious, which with CJ out, Thomas Charles Jagasaw, and Ashton Craig returning from injury, do Notre Dame fans honestly think the O-line is the best in the country? Not trolling, just wondering. And Adam, I don't think you're trolling. I think that's a fair question to bring up. I've said this. I'm not as sold on the Notre Dame offensive line as some national analysts are. I'm listening to Greg McElroy and Cole Kubelic. Hey, Cole Kubelic played O-line in the SEC. He's hyping up Notre Dame's offensive line big time. So is Greg McElroy. They're saying it's the best O-line in the country. Now, that was before Jagasaw went out. But since then, I'm hearing David Pollock and other people talk about how it's still an elite offensive line. So this isn't even me saying this. This is an outside analyst is saying this. But, like, the point is, it's an O-line And Adam, whether you view it as the number 1 O-line in the country, number 2, number 5, number 7, it's kind of like what you and I talked about with Alabama's offensive line. Whether it's you think it's 1 to 3 like some people do or 7, the fact is it's still an outstanding offensive line. It's just will it be 3, 1, or 7? If you're in the top 10, you're outstanding. And that's the thing about Notre Dame's O-line. If you're, I don't know if it's number 1. You know, we had Penn State. We both had Penn State number 1. I had Notre Dame 2. I think you had Notre Dame 4. Did I say, Trev? I think you're missing the boat on them being 4. Did I ever say that to you? No, because I'm like, that's fair. I even said I'm projecting a lot to get them to 2. But it's still in the top 10 and should be top 5. But, like, that's the whole point, though. That's not even your best position group.
Mm-hmm.
That might not even be your second best position group on offense. We're being honest about it. If you want to go off pass production, it's number 3 behind the receivers. There's a lot more proven production on this roster at wide receiver than there is in the offensive line. Am I wrong? No, I'm not. So you're not needing your quarterback to carry the team. Drew Aller, who's returning, has a great backfield. There's question marks everywhere else at the skill positions. I mean, Notre Dame can match you running back, but I don't know a lot of people that are going to say, oh, I'll take Penn State's receiving core and tight ends over Notre Dame's. I don't know a lot of people saying that. So how big of a deal will quarterback be? And by the time they get to the postseason, their starting quarterback's probably going to have 12 games under his belt, barring injury.
Mm-hmm.
He's not going to be a freshman anymore. Just like Sam Leavitt wasn't playing like a freshman by the time he got to the postseason.
Look, the frustrating thing is I think there's some people missing the boat on some of the conversations that we're having. Us saying that Notre Dame is being overlooked and underrated doesn't mean they don't have questions. We did an entire show about the questions that this team has and our questions going into fall camp and who's going to do what, and we got to see this, and I got it. Those are all valid, but it's the answers to those questions that some of these other outlets are putting out there. There's an assumption that Notre Dame doesn't have the talent to answer those questions. And it's a lot of, but they have Marcus Freeman, so they'll be okay because he can get more out of these guys and what they have in God-given ability. That's the issue. The issue is the fact that they don't think that Notre Dame has Leonard Moore and Jeremiah Love. They know they have them by name on the roster, but I don't think they appreciate the level of talent that they were on. If Leonard Moore was on Texas and Jeremiah Love was on Georgia and Malachi Fields transferred to Alabama and not transferred to Notre Dame, and Will Pauling probably stayed at Wisconsin, and Anthony Knapp was the starting left tackle at Miami and not at Notre Dame, they would have all been
Georgia.
on Feldman's freak list.
Agree.
That's the issue. That doesn't mean that this program and this team is without question. That doesn't mean that this program and this team don't have things that we need to see answered. That's not the case that we're making. It's the fact that there's this stigma that they don't have the ability to answer it because they're just handicapped by these B-list athletes that they have. And it's frustrating that some people don't believe it when people like Brian have seen and compared what previous teams look like to what this team looks like now. I'm a little spoiled. The first time I get to go to Notre Dame practices was this past spring and now in fall camp. But I still understand what premier level athletes look like. And I don't think I would go watch an LSU practice or a Penn State practice and walk away being like, Notre Dame doesn't have that.
Yeah.
It's so frustrating.
Which was true when you saw those two teams side by side in 2012.
Yes. Yes, it was. Came a long way.
Yeah. Like NH said, all teams have questions.
Yes.
And she said only Notre Dame's matters, though. And that's exactly the point. I mean, Ohio State has a brand new quarterback that's never played a meaningful down of football. Way more questions on the offensive line at running back than Notre Dame has. They're going to be money at the skill positions.
Mm-hmm.
Great receiving core coming back. Love the Max Clare pickup at tight end. They had to replace all 4 starting defensive linemen from last year. All 4. And they've got to replace 2 DBs. And they got to replace their all Big Ten middle linebacker. Well, they're preseason number 1, 2, or 3. Why? Well, they're the defending champs. All right, cool. I understand. We're going to ignore their question marks, though. Like, why are they? Okay, fine. They're the defending champs. All right, cool. I can dig that. Well, what about Georgia? Their offensive line was a hot mess last year, and they lost 3 of those guys. Their D-line was pretty good, but they lost literally their entire starting defensive line. They lost their two of their three best DBs from last year's team. They're having a brand new receiving core made from the portal of guys who didn't produce the way the Notre Dame transfers produced. They got great tight ends and a good running back room, but it's not as good as Notre Dame's. Why are they getting the benefit of the doubt? Well, they won a title. Okay, fine, whatever. I can live with those. Now let's talk about Texas and Penn State. Let's talk about Oregon. Because Notre Dame has more national championship in the last 20 years. Notre Dame has played for the national championship twice, meaning they got to the title game. That's more than Texas, Oregon, and Penn State combined. Those three teams combined for one. No, I'm sorry. Oregon has two. Let's go playoff era, where you had to win a game to get there. In the playoff era, Oregon's got one, Notre Dame's got one, Penn State's got zero. If you want to go overall, Notre Dame has two, Oregon has two, Penn State none, and then Texas none. You got to go back to 2005. Think about this. 2005, if my math is correct, 2005 is closer to 1988 than it is 2025. Is my math wrong on that?
No, it's correct. That's just a weird thought.
I think so 1988 is 12 plus 5. So 2005 would be 17 years after 1988, correct?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like in my head, that
correct.
math is wrong.
You're correct.
Right? So now you look at 2005 to now, and it's 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
But yet we're still living in that, but Notre Dame has still got to prove it. Notre Dame's played for the title twice in the last 15 years. Texas has played 0 times. In the last 15 years, Notre Dame has played for the title twice. Oregon's played twice. Oregon got smacked the last time they were in it. They've been in the playoffs once. Notre Dame has been in the playoffs 3 times. Penn State's been in the playoffs once. Texas has been in the playoffs twice. It's like, what are we doing here, Trev? What are we doing here? It's just really frustrating. And that's why this team needs to go out there just to a degree. So that's my fan analyst side. I'm pissed off. Let's end it this way, because we can just rant about this for another hour, and I don't want to do that. Let's look at it this way. I'm actually, that part of my feeling is okay, I feel this way. I'm upset about it. It's disrespectful to this program. It's disrespectful to this team. Good. I'm glad that the head coach is getting all this love, but that triggers me a little bit because we had to deal with that the entire Brian Kelly era, where they talk about the coach getting more with less and all this other bull crap that just was never true. And I don't think I'm very confident. I'm not friends with Marcus Freeman. I don't hang out with Marcus Freeman. I don't talk with Marcus Freeman. But knowing him and having covered him for 3 years, I'm pretty confident Marcus Freeman does not agree with that statement, that this past year they did more with less than anybody in college football. I think he would say is, I don't think you respect my players enough. I would think that that's his mantra. I could be wrong on that, but that would be my thought process. I think he's like, dude, I'll stack my guys up against, you know what I mean? Like your guys. We didn't luck into the national title last year. We destroyed people. I mean, Notre Dame had 2 regular season games decided. I think Notre Dame won 14 games this year. If I remember correctly, only 3 of them were decided by single digits. Am I correct on that?
Louisville, Penn State.
And no, actually it's only 2 because USC was double digits. I was kind of counting USC, and I'll still count USC because that game was a little closer than for at least part of the game, but Notre Dame never trailed that game. And I got to still I still got to look and say, okay, but this team somehow snuck their way into it. They were gritty. Yes, they were try-hard guys, but they were try-hard guys and gritty players that are talented. Xavier Watts is probably going to start for the Falcons this year at safety as a rookie, 3rd-round draft pick. You know, this team is talented, and I'm tired of them not getting the respect for it. I'm tired of the lazy, they're just coached incredibly well. It's actually true about this group, which is why I think they're a better team. It wasn't necessarily true about the last group.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've seen some Notre Dame teams underachieve like crazy under Brian Kelly. We've talked about that mediocre 19 team that just out-talented people. That team had no business losing 2 football games. Unless the second game was a national title game.
Well, and being a well-coached team, it's kind of like do you remember back when we were having that conversation about quarterbacks and separating into like game managers and playmakers? There's a stigma around, like they're just a well-coached ball club that
Mhm.
they like don't have the athletes, but no, that's both can be true. You can have outstanding athletes and also be well-coached. Who remembers back in Alabama's prime, really from like '09 to 2020, and they would have like a penalty on defense and the announcers were beside themselves that they ever got penalized because they were so well-coached.
Mhm.
Both things can be true. You can be well coached and have elite NFL caliber talent on your team. Both can be true. You can't. We've watched Notre Dame teams with a lot of talent on it that weren't as disciplined as some of the other teams. And where did that land them? 2015, 10-2. Technically 10-3. We've seen it.
Yeah.
So you can be both. Ideally, you are both. But this notion that the only reason why they were so good is because Marcus Freeman found a way to make Leonard
Yeah.
more fast, and Dylan McCullough found a way to make Jeremiah Love be able to hurdle players, and Gino Gaduli found a way to make Riley Leonard hurdle Malachi Starks in the Sugar Bowl. It's nonsense. And that's what bothers me.
Yep.
Is it's not willing to take a look at the other side. But to your point, I do like the fact that this is the conversation leading up to the season for the team and bulletin board material.
Yes. And that's the flip side, Trev. Keep going. Yep.
Because if I'm Marcus Freeman, he has a track record, which I love, of when he gets disrespected, when his team gets disrespected, there is a response, and it's not verbally. There is a response.
Yep.
You doubt Notre Dame's athletic ability compared to teams like Miami and Texas A&M. If I'm anybody, if I'm Mario Cristobal and I'm Mike Elko, I'm like, you guys got to start putting some more respect on Notre Dame's name, man, because they're about to show the world, they're about to show the country on national television what type of athletes that they have, and start putting a lot of these questions to rest early.
Yeah.
That's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah. If I'm Marcus Freeman, I want every bit of this.
Mm-hmm.
I want every bit of this. Yeah. Tell me my players don't have, tell me that we were good simply because I do more with less. Like if I'm Marcus Freeman, I take that comment and I'm showing it to them. Do you guys think that I'm, you know what I mean? Like, no, this is disrespect to you. Like this is the opposite of what I talk about. Team glory before individual glory. They're trying to give me individual glory by saying my team doesn't deserve glory. It's all about me and my coaches and how good we are. Yes. But that's not how it is with Kirby. Kirby's a great coach and he's got great players. Why is that not true for Notre Dame? It's because you're still living in this lazy narrative about Notre Dame lacks the athleticism. And this, as I said on a show recently, when was the last time you could argue that Notre Dame went into the season with the number one running back and the number one cornerback in college football?
Not in my lifetime.
I don't know that it's in my lifetime either. Because I don't think that when Todd Light was arguably the number one corner in the country, that Mark Green or Anthony Johnson was considered a number one running back. I don't know that Ricky Waters went into 1990 with people saying he was the best running back because he was on such a deep running back room. Tom Carter became a stud at corner that year. It was the first round draft. But I don't know going into that year that anybody thought he was going to be that good. And Jerome was getting a lot of hype, but I don't think Reggie Brooks was getting that same kind of hype about being a big time running back. So no, I don't think we've seen that before. That's true of this team. And yet there's still questions about the talent of this team. And it infuriates me. And if I'm Marcus Freeman, if I'm Mike Denbrock, and Coach said, we don't care about this stuff. Yeah, you do. And you should. You just have to use it the right way. Like you can play the disrespect card too much to where it's like, okay, Coach, we get it. Navy's media disrespected us. Okay, we get it, Coach. You know what I mean? But like, use it the right way. And so far, Marcus Freeman's done a really good job of using that. People say, well, what's your motivating factor going to be this year? Do you have to lose a game? No, this is what you use. No matter what we did, they still disrespect us. They've got Georgia ranked ahead of us. They got Penn State ranked ahead of us. They think Texas is a better team than we are. They think Oregon's a better team than we are. They don't respect you. They think if I'm him, I'm absolutely, my team will know that Miami's got better championship odds than we do. I will promise you that leading up to that game, my team will know that. Guys, they think this is a better team than you. They think this is a team that's got a better chance of winning a national championship than you do. We're going to go out there and we're going to silence those people tonight. And oh, man, I would absolutely make sure my team knows about it. Absolutely
100%.
make sure my team knows about it. And that's the part of it that I like.
Mm-hmm.
One of the big questions we had this offseason was, will this team stay hungry? And it wasn't a question in that we have concerns about it. It's a question that's realistic. I think it's a fair question for Ohio State's players as well. Mm-hmm. Are they going to be hungry to go out and win another one? Or, hey, we've arrived. We won our title. Now let me focus on me.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I think their players are going to do that. It's just a question you ask of every team that has the kind of season that Notre Dame and Ohio State had.
And it's a legitimate question. Yeah.
Right. You got to go prove it. I would ask the same question if Notre Dame won the title last year. Is this team hungry to win another one? Or is it now about me? Hey, I won my title. Like, let's say they won it last year. Let's say Jeremiah Love would have run for 180 yards and they win that game against Ohio State last year. I would be asking, okay, is he hungry for another one? Or is there now he thinking about the individual awards, the Heisman, the Doak, and all this stuff? Is he's hungry for the team glory? Mm-hmm. Not that I would doubt that about Jeremiah. It's just a question I would ask any player in that situation. And they have to go answer that. But, yeah, I think this team now has some fuel to go out there and say, you don't respect us. And you need to find, in football especially, I just have always felt you need that. You need that edge, that's something to kind of work towards. It's like you remember watching Rocky 1 and Rocky 2, like they had pictures on their walls. Like you look at that photo of Rocky, Apollo's looking at that photo of Rocky every day. You know what I mean? And just that's his fuel to go out there and put in that work. Like Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Magic's talked about how, and Larry's talked about, if I'm out there shooting 1,000 free throws, I'm like, I should probably shoot another 1,000 because I think Magic's shooting 1,000. And Magic's like, I should probably shoot another 1,000 free throws because I think Larry's shooting 1,000 free throws. Like you need that motivator, that external motivator on top of the internal motivators. And boy, the national media, especially ESPN, are certainly giving him to this football team. And I would make sure that they know it at the right time. Like right now, I don't care. Right now, I'm just focused on do we not line up and tackle and run routes and, but like as we get to the middle of fall camp, and it's getting to those dog days, it's time to rally these players to a common cause. And that common cause is going to be they don't respect us because they don't. It's not even like false hype. I got to find something to get them excited. No, it's real. It's like they don't respect you the way they do these other teams. They don't think you've proven enough. They think you got lucky last year. Well, that's the worst Georgia team your Kirby Smart's had since 2020. Yeah, Penn State this, Penn State that, this, that, and the other thing. Abdul was hurt, blah, blah, blah. All these excuses. There's only one person I've seen in the national analyst that has talked about how is David Pollack. He's like, nobody had to deal with injuries more than Notre Dame did last year. Nobody. Of the top teams, nobody. And that team still went on the run they went on. No, everybody else acts like they just lost a couple backups. So it's real disrespect, in my opinion. It is. It's real overlooking. It's real. You haven't proven it to us. And now it's time to say, okay, we're going to go out and show you. Beating the SEC champ last year still isn't enough to get SEC respect. Cool. Watch what we're about to do now. And that's what's in front of them. And that's what they have to prove. They have to now prove that, Trevor. Because if they go 9-3 again, which according to Josh Pate's model is most likely, then they basically say, you guys were right.
Yep.
You guys are right. We were a one-hit wonder. We're same old Notre Dame. We can't do it 2 years in a row.
Yep.
But don't worry, next year's team's going to be really good. Like, same old Notre Dame. And this team has got to prove that this is not the same old Notre Dame. This is different. And that's what I'm looking forward to.
Well, that's going to do it for part one of today's show. You guys know what to do. Be sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, that notification bell so you know whenever we go live, whatever streaming platform you listen to us on. We would greatly appreciate a 5-star review. But as you guys know, the best way to support what we do here is subscribe to the premium message boards at boards.irishbreakdown.com. We're right in the heat of fall camp. All of the good intel pieces are coming out there. We are now 27 days away Notre Dame kicking off their season. There's college football this month. We are, I think, 19 days away from week 0. I think Kansas State plays Iowa State. So there's college football right around the corner, but all the great intel that we're going to have, message boards at boards.irishbreakdown.com.